Rarely does a game come along that does its job as good as Valheim. Created by Swedish developer Iron Gate Studios, Valheim was quick to sell over 4 million copies in under a month. Now, early access games don't exactly have the best reputation. Based on the history, lots of people had very justified doubts. But if one thing is clear, it's that Valheim is here to save us all. If you go to valheimgame.com, you're greeted with the following blurb.
The Valkyries have ferried your soul to the 10th Norse world as a custodian, where you must adventure to the ends of the realm, from the deepest forest to the highest mountain peak, slaying beasts of myth and legend feared by Odin himself. You will craft powerful weapons, build unyielding castles, and sail longships towards the horizon to prove yourself to the All-Father, and certainly die trying.
Quite the intro, I agree, and strong claims of gameplay. I've read many a tagline in my days as a professional gamer, but rarely are they so viscerally true as this paragraph is for Valheim. So let's take a look at exactly how and why that paragraph rings so true. As has become my trend, I'm going to be splitting this video up into a couple of segments that explain why Valheim is the co-op survival crafting game you never knew you wanted. We're going to discuss 3 categories. Gameplay, where I'll go into detail about the main gameplay loop through the lenses of combat, exploration, and crafting. World design, covering the atmosphere, soundtrack, and culture of the game's world and development. Then finally mythology, where I'll talk about the ways Norse myth is integrated not only into the setting and plot, but into the gameplay itself. Valheim has stolen my heart, and I want to tell you all about it, so let's get started right away. Valheim feels how every game should aim to feel. Good. The controls are tight and responsive. Game systems are built well and fleshed out. Hell, I haven't encountered a single crash or bug yet of any kind, and for early access, that is special. The crafting systems are just a little bit complex, but generally this is the kind of game you can pick up and play with ease. So first, let's talk about the basics of combat. Think of it as LEGO Dark Souls. You've got attacking, blocking, parrying, and dodging, all based around stamina usage. There's a main attack combo, and most weapons have a secondary attack as well. These are different depending on the weapon you're using, and are best suited for different combat scenarios. Weapons also do different types of damage: slash, piercing, and blunt. A spear is going to do piercing damage, which won't be very helpful against enemies like skeletons or leeches. But a mace does blunt damage, giving you an advantage over the Burial Chamber's Skelevoy warriors. What I'm saying is, damage type matters. Some enemies are resistant to one and weak to another. There's also stealth. Yeah, I was surprised too, but it's pretty functional. See, hitting an enemy in the back generally does 3 times the damage, so being sneaky is worth the effort. But if you use a knife, that multiplier goes up to 10. Gotta say, the Abyssal Razor had me feeling a bit like Pike with 8 kills at 6 minutes. Am I right, League players? League of Legends? Stealth is also very helpful for hunting, as early on you won't have a bow to hunt deer with. Those little buggers are fast and will outrun you, so be careful as you walk through the woods. Don't want to spook them. Exploration is definitely Valheim's strongest suit. Sprinting across open fields, creeping through misty woods, sailing choppy oceans, and delving into dank and dusty crypts. There is no lack for adventure in this game. And between it all, you'll more than likely build a base for you and your allies. Occasionally your base will be sieged by enemies, so building walls or other defenses will go a long way in protecting your valuables. Please protect your bees, the bees are so important. Your main goal is to defeat all 5 bosses, 1 for each biome. You'll need to build gear that can help you win the fight, and to do that you have to go to the different biomes and collect the resources there. Crafting is fairly straightforward, nothing is hidden or overly complex, and recipes reveal themselves to you as you gather new resources. Having the resources to build what you need on your travels will save a lot of headachy deaths, of which I've experienced a few. The game rewards good planning. Once you beat the first boss, you're advised to go to the Black Forest to make bronze, the weakest metal. Metal is a great upgrade from basic gear, but you'll need a good amount, more than you can carry in one trip. So it's usually lucrative to set up a base near the resources. To get the materials to make a smelter, you have to go into burial crypts in the forest and find Surtling cores. The cores are also used for portals, allowing you to link your new base to home. The portal system encourages multiple bases, definitely the most efficient way to play the game. Portals make travel between places instantaneous, but there's a catch. Metal, before being formed into tools, cannot go through portals. So wherever you go, you need to make sure to bring the resources with you to set up a fully functional base, including a forge and smeltery, as well as a portal home. It's a moderate resource drain, but trust me when I say it's the best way to advance. If you're like me, you'll end up with a cute little portal pavilion connecting all your bases. Gearing up is great, but now you need to actually find the boss itself. The best way to do this is to go to their biome and look for these small runestones that can give you their location. Sometimes they're close, sometimes they're at the farthest corners of the realm, and when that happens, it's time to build a boat. See, one brilliant thing about Valheim is that you are a Viking and so you must sail. Waterways connect the entire world, so boats become an undeniable necessity in getting to those farther reaches and distant shores. It's a good idea to build a portal at home before you leave and to pack the materials needed to make one with you for your destination. Will you cross the ocean itself, braving storms and sea serpent attacks? Or will you stick to the coasts, taking the long way but sailing with ease past everything? Well, everything but the plains. Those damnable deathsquitos.
I fear no man, but that thing. It scares me.
Reaching the boss altars can sometimes be an adventure all on their own. Not to mention how helpful it is to build a base here as well, so you can make gear out of the local resources. The boss fights are no simple battles. You need reliable weapons and strong armor for every one of them. They'll put your skills to the test, so don't take them lightly. Now let's talk building, because the building in this game is great. Snapping things is not so bad. You need to place your mouse pretty perfectly to snap things together right, but the possibilities are endless. A scroll through the Valheim subreddit will show you infinite examples of the free-form nature of this game's building system. Here's a few things I've built myself and some stuff for my friends. Nothing insane, but if there's a house I want to build, an idea I want to try, usually nothing holds me back. The nicest part of this is that when you demolish structures, you get back all the resources put into them. A nice change from other survival games.
No, don't do it!
And that's the general gameplay loop. Reach the biome, build a base, process resources, and fight the boss. But trust me when I say it doesn't get repetitive and it doesn't get boring. There's new enemies in every biome, and the world generation is so varied that two biomes of the same type rarely look the same. On top of it all, Valheim is a game built for co-op. Not PvP, co-op. Important distinction. The devs recommend a party of 2 to 5 for the ideal experience, but worlds can host up to 10. Unlike some other popular survival multiplayer titles out there, the game is scaled for players to be able to succeed without any need to modify resource or experience gains at all. I've been playing this game mostly in single player, and look, it's not as efficient as multiplayer by any means, but it's certainly enjoyable. And there's nothing that holds me back from progressing other than my own need to act like a hero and die stupidly. Consider solo play a kind of hardcore mode. And that's all I've got on gameplay. So let's talk world design. You know, I'm a big fan of atmospheric games. Some of my favorite examples of effective video game atmosphere are in classic Tomb Raider, where eerie and isolated environments create senses of danger and discovery that go hand in hand. And Shadow of the Colossus, where a world of sprawling whimsy and discovery is muted by overtones of silence and solitude. These are my favorite kinds of worlds, where there's room for imagination, but enough before you that you stay immersed in the environment that's been created. Worlds where you never know what dangers lie around the next corner, but mastery of the game's controls and mechanics will give you a fighting chance. Valheim finds a brilliant balance in the middle of these concepts. The graphical style of Valheim nestles itself right between PlayStation 1 and 2. With simple textures and no commitment to overly high polygon counts, Valheim creates beauty out of the unassuming. Its visuals serve both form and function. Take note of the wind as it blows past you in the peaceful meadows. White lines streak through the air, making perfect sense to the human mind as wind rushing across plains. but the direction of the wind is important for sailing, and those white lines are a good visual indicator. Meaningful systems of light and shadow create a sense of warmth for homes and a creeping fear for dungeons, but light levels also determine the effectiveness of stealth. Creatures in this game are designed with distinct silhouettes. Even different types of the same creature are recognizable from a distance. This kind of visual clarity not only helps the player in a practical sense, but also gives the world a sense of life that propels immersion ever further. Even the way water moves is semi-realistic, but just fanciful enough that you can be totally lost in a world of Viking fantasy just by sitting by the shore. Activities like sailing or sitting by a fire for a rested bonus create these slower moments of reflection, of conversation, where there's nothing around but the adventure before you and your fellow Vikings. Moments like these are what I like to think of as the real heart of gaming. We play games to escape and make friends, yeah? Or at least I do. And when games have you sitting around a campfire with your party or taking a deep breath after a tough boss fight, those times to me are the most important and wonderful moments that can happen. Props to Iron Gate Studio. Sailing the waters of Valheim has brought me right back to that place of comfort. Sometimes when you put your character to sleep, they will have a dream you can read about. But beyond that, the game looks like a dream. Oftentimes, it feels like a dream, and the soundtrack does wonders for that experience as well. As is my practice, all the music you've heard so far has been from this game, and the Meadows theme, which is playing now, is my favorite of them all. Starting a new world is exciting for me every time because I know I'm going to get to run around the meadows hunting boars while this gorgeous track plays in the background. It's one of the best in gaming altogether, and you won't be able to change my mind on that. The music always fits the mood and stays in the culture, from the eerie backing of the Black Forest to the wistful heights of the highest mountains. Traditional Scandinavian instruments like the goat horn, the tagelharpa, and the lyre are utilized everywhere atop drum beats, constantly reminding the player that this is a Norse world through and through. But that's not all. Thank you. The heavy metal background of the boss themes, doesn't that speak to the popularity of metal in Scandinavia today? Of the way Scandinavian metal bands have reshaped the genre altogether? I'm no expert, but I did ask some metalhead friends of mine about it, and we determined that the boss fights take the traditional instruments from before and use them like a pie crust, then filling it up with aspects of these modern Scandinavian metal bands like Opeth, Amon Amarth, or Nightwish. See, there are times when the situation demands something different, like this first boss fight. A storm descends around you as your toughest enemy yet shoots lightning at you from its horns. This is a distinct turn from the deer hunting and grayling fighting you've been doing until this point, and the music reflects that. The usual instruments take a back seat, supporting heavy electric guitars that come in to express the danger and severity of fighting a boss, reminding the player that these fights are not to be taken lightly, but also that this is, as I said before, a Norse world through and through, a delectable fusion of past and present. This stylistic decision gives a timeless aspect to the Nordic culture being celebrated here. Moving on to other cultural aspects, potions in this game reference a bit more of Nordic culture. They're brewed as if they were mead. Actually, they're literally mead bases until fermented. They're mead. This is cultural, I swear. Mead was the premier drink of the Viking world in its afterlife, and not just because people like getting drunk. When you don't have a steady supply of clean, running water like exists today, one of the safest things people would try to hydrate with was chemically sterile alcohol. This has been the case across the planet in the ancient world, and Scandinavia is no exception. Even the very act of sailing is a Viking practice. The Vikings were known for sailing in longboats, which do exist in the game and are essential to progression. Like I mentioned before, it's those slow moments on boats that really tie this game together into a perfect Nordic knot. And to speak more on that, let's jump into mythology. Remember that bit in the beginning?
The Valkyries have ferried you.
Yeah, that. About this being the 10th world where you must prove yourself for Valhalla. So that's a little bit of a deviation from myth, but what a great deviation it is to create the setting for a game based in this mythos. See, it was Viking belief that there were 9 realms in the universe, all connected by the world tree Yggdrasil. If you look at the sky anywhere in Valheim, you'll probably see Yggdrasil above you. Huge glowing branches spread across the horizon, connecting the realms. All but this one. There are realms of gods like Asgard, realms of giants like Jotunheim, realms of the dead like Niflheim, and of course the human realm Midgard. But Valheim is the supposed 10th realm, set apart from the others. Upon his defeat of the progenitor frost giant Ymir, and subsequent creation of the world, All-Father Odin sent the toughest enemies whom he could not kill to Valheim, then breaking its ties to the world tree, so it could exist adrift in the cosmos as a prison. Our characters are doing this, beating these bosses and surviving in this world, to prove ourselves to Odin, to prove that we deserve a seat at the eternal table. Odin is a figure of the highest respect in Norse mythology. He holds the position of Zeus in Greece, or Izanagi in Japan. It's believed that he would appear to people as an unassuming old man, wearing an eye patch, a dark robe, and leaning on a staff. Thinking emoji. That looks like... Odin is also often represented by ravens, who acted as his spies and couriers. One of the 2 named ravens in myth is Hugin, the same raven who gives you tutorial information as you progress. Guess he's been watching closely. Lots of creatures and bosses in the game find their origins in myth as well. Eikthyr, the first boss, is one such example. From the Poetic Edda, there's a stag who stands atop the world tree named Eikthyr, eating its leaves. Water pours from his horns and reaches Niflheim in the form of rivers. The trolls of the Black Forest exist in myth as well. In older legends, they are assimilated into beliefs about frost giants, but later become their own race of beings. There are flaming humanoids known as Surtlings that call back to the Norse fire giant Surtur. Smite players, huh? These guys like to throw fireballs, which is kinda rude, but I get it. Makes for fun ranged battles, that's for sure. Probably my favorite inclusion is the Leviathans, which are faithful imaginings of the Norse Hafgufa. Massive ocean-born creatures whose backs were mistaken for islands. They're the only place to find chitin for crafting and will eventually submerge once you start mining. Make sure you get back to your boat before they're in the water. Nothing happens, it's just scary. Skyrim players will recognize the Draugr of the swamps, reanimated corpses that drop intestines upon death. Obviously a key ingredient in sausages. And Skyrim again, drakes and dragons exist in this world as well, up on the mountains. There are many examples of dragons in Norse mythology, such as a Nidhogg or a Fafnir, Smite, again, yeah, raise your hands. But in this case, the only dragon you encounter is a boss fight. Forcing the player to encounter and respect the power of these creatures is an effective way of bringing them to life through the game. Just as well, using cultural developments like longboats or mead brewing have much the same effect on those playing the game. And the fact that Odin will appear randomly in the distance to observe you, truly the icing on the cake. There's nothing left to say other than this. Valheim understood the assignment. Creating a Viking purgatory by inventing a 10th Norse realm is a brilliant setting for a game. The developers were free to include their heritage and history into the product as much as they wanted, because there are no rules to a made-up world. But when you set it comfortably in Norse myth, suddenly the entire culture, entire system of beliefs is ripe fruit for picking. I spent weeks telling my brother to buy this game every single day until he eventually did, and we've had some good times since. Valheim is an absolute treasure, a wonderful combination of quality gameplay, fascinating lore, rich culture, and brilliant design. This is an early access title, and as of the making of this video, has yet to receive any of the major content updates on its roadmap. But that is okay. If this game never got updated, I'd still consider it the best survival crafting on the market right now. It's a major contender for my game of the year, and that roadmap is exciting. If you haven't already, pick up Valheim. You won't regret it.